श्रीवत् श्रीवासराघवगुरोस्तनयं ततश्च विद्यावाप्य विबुधोत्तमतां दधानं कुर्वे सदा हृदि गुरुं करुणाकराख्यं लक्ष्मीनाथसमारम्भां नाथयामुनमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां यो नित्यमच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणं प्रपद्ये मातापिता युवतयस्तनया विभूतिः सर्वं यदेव नियमेन मदन्वयानाम् आद्यस्य नः कुलपतेर्वकुलाभिरामं श्रीमत्तदङ्घ्रिकुलं प्रणमामि मूर्ध्ना भूतं सरश्च महदाह्वय भट्टनाथ श्रीभक्तिसारकुलशेखरयोगिवाहान् भक्ताङ्घ्रिरेणुपरकालयतीन्द्रमिश्रान् श्रीमत्पराङ्कुशमुनिं प्रणतोऽस्मि नित्यं श्रीमान् वेङ्कटनाथार्यः कवितार्किककेसरी वेदान्ताचार्यवर्यो मे सन्निधत्तां सदा हृदि. In the previous lecture, we saw about the Panchabhutas. Then we saw Trivrit Karana and Panchikarana. So we saw about the Bhutas and Tanmatras. How the Bhutas, all of them were not formed at once, but each one eventually came from another. From Akasha, Vayu came. In the intermediate state, there was a Tanmatra. So Tanmatra Bhuta, in that way it goes. So Panchabhutas were seen. Trivrit Karana, the process of mixing, was seen by us. We also saw Panchikarana. Both of them are mentioned in the scriptures. Now we will move on to Indriyas. Indriyas are divided into two. Whatever is mentioned in the slides is supposed to be obvious for people. There are Karmendriyas and there are Jnanendriyas. Jnanendriyas are those that help us to understand. They involve perception. If you see what has been written, you can observe that everywhere perception is written. Jnanendriya helps us to perceive. Okay. So, Karmendriya helps us to perform action. So there are two parts. One is physical and one is mental. Right? The feeling that we have, the perception that we have, that comes from Jnanendriya. Whereas the actions that we do are done using the Karmendriyas. Now, the Jnanendriyas are what? Chakshu, Karna, Nasa, Jihva, Tvak. Karmendriyas, Vak, Pani, Pada, and so on. Now, when you look at these Indriyas, firstly, we should understand what they exist for. What is the purpose of Indriyas? The Jiva, we said, despite being made of Jnana and having the ability to hold Jnana, this Jiva is unable to take any action by itself. It is also unable to do any kind of thinking. So we said it needs a body. What kind of body? A usable body. What makes a body usable? There are many ways to look at it. When we look at humans, we say organic matter, whatever is made of organic matter. Is it necessarily enough? No, not necessary. Food that I have would still fall under achit. Food, rice or wheat or whatever you are having, it is going to be coming from a plant. The plant is considered as Chetana. Yet, when you eat those grains, in spite of having Jivatman inside, it would be considered as Achetana. Why so? Because it does not have Chit. It cannot operate. So operation is what differentiates, self-operation is what differentiates Chit and Achit in this context. This self-operation is done in two ways. One is mental and one is physical. So if I say that a jiva is there inside a human body, a jivatma is inside the human body, and this human body is alive, it means that body is using at least one indriya in some way or the other. Somewhere, something is being done. We know in the worst case scenario also, people who are in coma, something still happens, right? Their heart still beats, the blood still flows, the nose still breathes. We know all of that. So, Indriya, should we call it an organ? A lot of people say Indriya means organ. Why? Jnanendriyas are organs, sense organs. Why? Look at the names, Chakshu, Karna, all of them. What do you understand from them? You understand eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin. These are the 5 sense organs, right? So, Indriya refers to sense organ, said a lot of people. But we should understand 2 things here. Firstly, the Jivatma, despite being different from the body, uses the body. And to use the body, it needs Karmendriya and Jnanendriya. So these Indriyas, these organs, they are not Jivatma. But at the same time, are they parts of the Sharira? Like tongue is part of the Sharira, right? Jihva is part of the Sharira. So by Jnanendriya, am I referring to a physical organ, a physical part, a part of the physical Sharira? The answer is not really. It is tricky. The word itself, Chakshu or Karna or Jihva, whatever, they would usually refer to a macro organ in the body. But when we look at the concept of Indriyas, we should understand that these happen in a different way. Indriyas are what enable the physical eyes to see. The perception of form and color is done by the physical eye because of the Indriya. That is how we should understand it. I hope this much is clear. So Indriya is something which controls the sense organ and helps the sense organ to sense when it is a Jnanendriya. So the Jnanendriya helps the sense organ to sense. The Karmendriya, on the other hand, would enable the organ to function physically. Vak is a physical action, right? My lips move, my tongue moves, correct? In Taittiriya Upanishad, Shikshavalli, it is said, Adharahanu Purva Rupam, Uttarahanu Uttara Rupam, Vak Sandhi, Jihva Sandhanam. Vak is the Sandhi when your upper lip and lower lip start moving with Jihva, that is your tongue, as the Sandhana. So your tongue becomes the medium, enabler of communication as your lips move. We don't need the Vedas to say it, do we? Simple Pratyaksha and Anumana are enough. But this is Shikshavalli, it teaches the basics. There are more things that are taught, much more things that are taught in the Veda. As per Vishishtadvaitha, the Veda's purpose is not to simply teach things that are outside. Like if you see the entirety of the Veda, it is not going to be as though it is only going to tell you something that is Indriya Bahya, which cannot be perceived by using your Indriyas, which cannot be understood through Pratyaksha and Anumana. Remember, Indriyas are what help you to perceive. Your Pratyaksha Jnana comes through Jnanendriyas. Correct? I look at a fire and I know I shouldn't go there. It's burning. Right? How did I get the knowledge? That is Pratyaksha Jnana that I got through the Indriya called Chakshu. In this way, Chakshu helps me to see and directly infer, which is what we call as Pratyaksha Jnana. So, Veda sometimes talks about Pratyaksha Jnana and Anumana Jnana. Many times it also talks about that which cannot be perceived by using Pratyaksha and Anumana. It is said that the Vedas count as Pratyaksha for great sages, very great sages. For them, whatever is presented as Shabda Pramana to us, because we cannot perceive by ourselves, our Indriyas are incapable of understanding certain things. For example, I am unable to see Swarga, I am unable to see Vaikuntha, I am unable to see Kailasha, yet all of them exist. Do my eyes see them? No. Do my ears hear them? No. Does my nose smell them? No. Can my tongue taste anything from there? No. Am I able to touch and feel it with my skin? No, I'm not able to do any of that. But even so, I know that Swarga is real, Kailasha is real, Vaikuntha is real. How do I know? Through Shabda Pramana. That Shabda Pramana is taken as a separate Pramana by us. We have discussed about this so many times. Pratyaksha is different, Anumana is different, Shastra, Shabda is different. We have taken it that way. Now, what has been presented as Vedic knowledge to us, there were certain very great rishis who, through their tapasya, through their meditation, through their tapobala, through their austerities, through their intense bhakti, and so on, they were able to get this knowledge without having to listen to a guru reciting the Veda. So for those great sages, it was Pratyaksha. But for us, it does not count as Pratyaksha Jnana. We should be very clear. So if it is said for great sages, it was Pratyaksha, we should not argue saying Veda is also Pratyaksha Pramana. It's a very nonsensical argument. Some people have done this argument in the past, unfortunately. But let us ignore that and move on. So, Indriyas might not give you all the knowledge that your Veda is teaching. In fact, it does not give you Anumana Pramana either. Correct? Jnanendriya and Karmendriya, you need the combination to understand anything, right? Let us say there is a book in front of me. My eyes see it, it looks like a book. My skin touches it, it feels paper. But how does my skin touch it? I use my hands to hold the book. And then I feel it using my skin. So I'm using Karmendriya and I'm using Jnanendriya to understand that it is really a book and not something else. Of course, do we really need two Jnanendriyas to understand? Just by looking at it, we can say it is a book, right? Most of the times, yes. So, our Indriyas would give you Pratyaksha Jnana. But we need to process this information, whatever perception we get through the Jnanendriya has to be processed by us. And then we should come to a conclusion. We have already seen how pratyaksha jnana could be wrong at times. When I am in a desert, my eyes would perceive water, but it could be a mirage where it is not water. It is simply due to various reflection effects and my own mind. I think there is a lot of water there, but there wouldn't be any water. We call it a mirage. So, jnanendriyas do not necessarily convey the truth to us. They give us the perception. That perception is again dependent on our own physical and mental attributes and also what is there outside. All of those are definitely to be considered. Now, having said this much, let us think a little more. The jnanendriyas help us to attain knowledge because they perceive. This perceived knowledge then goes to the mind. Manas is another indriya. It does not fall under karmendriya and jnanendriya, but it is also there. What does manas do? What does the mind do? It processes this perception, this perceived knowledge is processed, and the processed clean knowledge is given to us. Not necessarily 100% clean. It again depends on how good the mind is, but it is definitely processed. Karmendriyas, on the other hand, help us to perform various actions, types of actions. Speaking is clearly different from grasping or holding. What I can do with my hands, I cannot do with my feet. We say humans have 4 limbs, yet what we can do with our hands, we cannot do with our feet. Therefore, they need to be classified. Pani Padav. You have hands and feet. Hand and foot. Okay, are they the only things I need? No, no. I'm speaking. Correct? I'm able to speak somehow. Speech is something that hands and feet cannot do. Likewise, reproduction, excretion. We need different types of organs for these. Why are these the only ones that are mentioned? Let us try to understand again that these are not physical organs. Okay. We should try to understand. They are indeed coming from Prakriti only. Both Karmendriya and Jnanendriya have eventually come from Mula Prakriti. We have seen that. Correct? We said there is Chit, Achit, and Ishvara. This Achit started out as Mula Prakriti and later evolved into so many different types. So, even though the Jnanendriyas help us to get knowledge, they are non-living. Even though Karmendriyas help us to perform physical actions, they are non-living. We should remember this. Indriya does not have life. Therefore, these Indriyas operate only due to the commands given by the Jivatma. So, the Atma gives commands. Therefore, they function. If not for the Atma, they would not function at all. Okay. But given that they are functioning, can they function completely? No. Firstly, Indriyas are imperfect. Remember, we are talking about Indriyas of the Jivatma. If it is Paramatma, then Paramatma can perceive everything perfectly, do everything perfectly. He can do with or without Indriyas. That is his wish. We are talking about Jivas who have not yet attained moksha, Baddha Jivas. Baddha Jivas, the bodies of these Baddha Jivas have Karmendriya and Jnanendriya. That is what we are looking at. These Baddha Jivas who are residing in usable bodies have in their usable bodies Karmendriya and Jnanendriya. So these Indriyas are naturally limited. They are made of Prakriti. They are not made of Shuddha Sattva. They are imperfect. Therefore, they have a number of drawbacks. The first drawback is that they cannot give us complete information. For example, when I open my eyes vision is restricted by a lot of things. Whenever there is an opaque object, my eye cannot see through properly. Correct? We classify objects as transparent, translucent, and opaque. When there is a transparent object, I can see through. When there is a translucent object, I might see a shadow behind it. When there is an opaque object, even if I am to see a shadow, that shadow has to fall on some other object. I cannot see through the opaque object. I will have to look somewhere else for its shadow, right? So our eyes are limited. Our ears are also limited. I cannot hear what happens 1 kilometer away unless it is that loud. Likewise, we cannot listen below 20 decibels, right? 20 decibel to 20,000 decibel, they say. The nose cannot smell everything. Yet, although it is the tongue that tells us the taste, many times the nose helps us to understand the taste better. If I were to tell you something like onions and potatoes have the same taste, or maybe if I were to tell you some two totally different, you know that they cannot be the same. They are totally different from each other. But many such food items exist that actually have similar tastes, yet dissimilar smell. The perception of touch is also slightly different for them, right? I don't have to eat onion and potato to say that they are different from each other. Looking at them is enough. They look different. Yes, they look different. If I touch them also, I will know the difference. Potato will be different. Onion will be different. Onion will have peel after peel after peel. Their intensity, density, all of them will be different. And yet, if you do not have a sense of smell, it would be extremely difficult for you to understand the taste properly. You might get confused between two totally dissimilar things. I talked about onion because onion gives a very strong smell. It gives such a strong smell. If it stops giving that smell, it would taste differently. Why are we discussing these things? That too, discussing about onion in a Vishishtadvaitha class, is it appropriate? No. We are simply taking it as an example to understand that the smell plays a major role in the taste. Items with very strong smell are most often non-sattvic in nature. We therefore avoid them. We are just taking it as an example here to discuss. Now, if you look at the perception of taste, as I said, it is to some extent dependent on the smell. But that's not all. There are certain other things. For example, what feels hot in my hand might feel hotter in the tongue, or sometimes less hotter, depending on how much we have trained it. What feels sticky in my hand? Let us say I'm having halwa and halwa is sticky. That may not be sticky when it is touched by the tongue. So the skin can tell me whether it is sticky or not. The tongue cannot tell me. So there are so many such things, right? This is about the Jnanendriyas. They are imperfect. They are imperfect in how many different ways? We said they cannot perform their functionalities completely. They are limited. Okay. In that limited space, are they perfect? No, even there they are not perfect. Even in their limited area of function, they are not perfect. For example, if I am not paying attention, you are speaking to me, but I am not paying attention. You might be sitting right next to me, but I would not understand what you are saying simply because I am not paying attention. What does it mean? It means I have heard, but my mind has not acted on it. Correct? Some sound entered through my ears, but they did not stay. For that sound to stay, for the sight to stay, ideally, what should we call it? We should call it as sight, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling, physical feeling, touching through feeling, whatever. We are unable to store it when we are distracted. I'm thinking about something else. Let us say I'm watching a movie. I get a phone call saying that my entire business, my entire $1 million business has shut down because something happened. I am in shock. Right now in front of me, my most favorite movie might be running, but my focus wouldn't be there. Therefore, my eyes will not perceive, my ears will not hear. All of that. Why does it happen? Because of the mind. The mind is way above all of these, and it is the mind that processes all the information. It is not just about processing, it is also about storing it in memory. If the mind does not act, whatever you see will not be stored in memory. Okay. Does it mean that only these indriyas have a problem? Manas is great. So, Manas we can assume to be supreme. Is that so? Not really. Manas will also have its own problems, but we will go to that later. Karmendriyas are imperfect. We know that they are imperfect, right? I cannot hold anything and everything. I know that. Certain things are slippery, certain things are not. Certain things cannot be felt properly. If I place an extremely hot object on your hand, you wouldn't be able to feel it the way you feel the differences between two ordinary temperature objects. You would not be able to perceive that difference for two extremely hot objects. So all of those things are there. But it's easier for us to understand about the capabilities and the limitations of karmendriyas when compared to jnanendriyas. Therefore, I explained the part of jnanendriyas. Now, all of these indriyas are usable only because of manas. And we say Jivatma is different from manas. The mind also is able to function only because it is controlled by the Jivatma. That has to be understood. So, if I want complete ability, I want to be able to walk anywhere. Will I be able? I will not be able. If I think I am capable, I will be an idiot. Mahabali was not an idiot. He knew how much distance a small dwarf can cover. How much can he cover? He is a brahmachari, small boy. small boy, small feet, how much distance can he cover? We all know, right? The mistake that Mahabali did was not in assuming that the boy can take only small places. The mistake was that he misunderstood. He mistook the boy to be a Jivatma. And was that really a mistake? That's a different thing. But he failed to recognize that it is Paramatma, whereas Shukracharya recognized it. Shukracharya recognized Bhagavan. He is a sage. What is Pratyaksha Jnana for the sage would be different from what is Pratyaksha Jnana for Mahabali. Mahabali depended on his Jnanendriyas to understand who was there in front of him. Mahabali could use only his Jnanendriyas to understand who is in front of him. And therefore, he saw only a small boy. Shukracharya, on the other hand, was a Paramatapasvi. He had such great knowledge, and therefore he was able to see the difference. Shukracharya, we say, when he looked at the boy, my venerable Acharya has mentioned the story a number of times about how Lakshmi Devi in the Vakshasthala of Bhagavan was identified by Shukracharya. Something was glowing in the right side of the chest of the boy. Instantly, Shukracharya knew there is only one person with something weird happening on his right chest. That person is Sriman Narayana, on whose Vakshasthala Mahalakshmi resides. Therefore, understanding this, immediately Shukracharya tried to stop Mahabali. But Mahabali did not listen. Shukracharya tried again and eventually ended up losing one. All of that is there. But why did this happen? Because Shukracharya had some existing knowledge, plus he had Tapobala, plus he had a very, very intelligent mind. This small boy, he is asking for just 3 feet of land. Shouldn't he be stupid to ask for just 3 feet of land? What should you ideally tell him? Why do you want 3 feet? Take something much bigger. Take an entire palace. The boy should say, oh, okay, thank you. No. The boy is asking only for 3 feet. Something is fishy. Something is definitely fishy there. Shukracharya understood. Mahabali could not see the divinity. He could not realize that the boy in front of him was Bhagavan. But now, given that he has been bound by these Jnanendriyas, what do we understand from this? We understand that true knowledge, complete knowledge, is something that can come only through the proper use of mind. When is your mind used properly? When the Jivatma controls it perfectly. When do you control it perfectly? When you have the right knowledge, when you have the tapobala, when you have something or the other, some divine thing should be there. So, complete knowledge. When do we have it? As per Vishishtadvaitha, we have already said, there is Dharma Bhuta Jnana, which is not completely vikasita in the case of a Baddha Jiva. So, once it attains moksha and becomes a mukta, or if we are considering a Nitya Suri, or if we are considering Bhagavan himself, for these entities, there is no problem because they have infinite knowledge. They have infinite knowledge, but how do you get infinite knowledge? Only through divine grace and blessing, only through Bhagavat Kataksha. How do you get moksha? Bhagavat Kataksha. Bhagavan grants moksha. Therefore, Bhagavan has infinite knowledge by nature. Nityasuris have infinite knowledge by nature. Baddha Jivas have the ability to get infinite knowledge by attaining moksha. That is how it works. So, these indriyas are at the end of the day inferior, yet we depend on them for our day-to-day things. We depend on them to live our lives. What about manas? We said manas controls all of these. Is it inside each of these? Or is it outside of each of these? How should we understand the manas? Manas is taken as a separate indriya in itself. It is a separate indriya. It processes these informations and gives directions. So, it is responsible for synthesizing all the inputs from the jnanendriyas and then directing actions to the karmendriyas. So, manas is what connects the jiva to karmendriya and jnanendriya. These karmendriyas, they are important for us to perform karma. Of course, without karmendriyas, you cannot perform any karma. But how do you use them? If I say mouth is there only to eat and keep eating, I would be an idiot, right? We should understand what our karmendriyas are for. What is the real purpose? The real purpose of the karmendriyas is to do karma in accordance with the shastras as an act to please Bhagavan. Sriman Narayana Prityartham. Whatever you do should be done to please Sriman Narayana. Whatever you do, that action should be a kainkarya for Bhagavan. Should be Bhagavat Kainkarya Rupa. That is how the karmendriyas should be used. We should try our level best at all points of time to direct our karmendriyas in that way. It is very difficult. Can you speak only Sattvic? Well, since the invasions and the colonial rule and everything, today we see that even the majority of Indians, despite having come from such a great culture, the majority of Hindus are every now and then using inappropriate words, uncivil words. And the use of uncivil words has been normalized to such an extent that they show the use of uncivil words in movies. Even if they beep it out, at the end of the day, simply by showing that somebody is using such a word in such a sentence, by moving the lips in such and such a way and so on, they are invoking the word in the minds of the people. So that is not the best way to speak. In fact, that is the worst way to speak. That is the way of the lechas. We speak civil language. How do you use your speech? You use your speech to speak in a sattvic way. Speak in a sattvic way. Learn from Rama, who in Ramayana gave the perfect example of how to use each karmendriya. See what Rama did with his hands. He gave donations. He destroyed evil. He protected good people. He protected the yaga. All of that. You see how to use karmendriya properly. When you use karmendriya perfectly and you do not seek any result, you offer all the results to Bhagavan, behaving like he is the doer, then you would be in karma yoga. Simple as that. What about Jnanendriya? What is the correct way to use Jnanendriya? Hmm? Karmendriya, we talked about the good way to use it. Do everything as per Bhagavad Sankalpa. Anukulyasya Sankalpa, Pratikulyasya Varjanam. If you don't do it that way, what will happen? If you use your karmendriyas in a way that is not meant for them, that is how we all are using, we will not get moksha. Therefore, we have not yet got moksha. So, we are remaining in the state of bondage because of misuse of karmendriyas. And these actions create a lot of things. Whatever action we do, it has a karma associated with it. It has a direct implication, correct? If I go and steal money from my neighbor, it is going to have its consequences. So the consequences are going to be there. The karma phala is going to be there. If I do papa karma, I am going to get suffering. That is going to be there. Additionally, it would create a vasana. It would create a vasana. We often get karma vasana. What is that vasana? Basically, you get used to it. You cannot come out of it. You are so used to doing something wrong that you continue to do it. That gets built. It makes it a habit. So, any wrong thing that we do, right, will eventually become a habit and become very difficult for us to leave. It is not just about drinking liquor. Liquor is not the only addictive thing in the world. There are plenty of things that are addictive. Some people are addicted to watching videos. Some people are addicted to playing games. Some people are addicted to making money. Some people are addicted to just talking. Some people are addicted to something else. All of these addictions, right, are inappropriate. None of these addictions is right. They are all wrong. The only valid addiction is addiction in Bhagavan. There we should be addicted. Bhagavan is everything. We should understand that. The Jnanendriyas help us to understand a lot of things. Right? It is with the same Jnanendriyas that we are going to realize the futility of the material world. So the jiva perceives the world with Jnanendriyas. And this world, which is real as per Vishishtadvaitha, the real world, perceptions of the real world are real. The world is real, yet temporary. That is how we say it, right? It will undergo transformation. So, the perceptions are real, yet there is futility in those perceptions. A lot of that knowledge is unnecessary. It leads us away from Bhagavan. Look at people. So, there was a saint. He was a great scholar of the Vedas. He would perform Somayaga frequently. A very great saint. Once, while he was in the mountains, he saw a stray dog. The dog was wounded. He wanted to care for it. He gave it some food. He applied some medicine. After applying medicine, some herbal medicine on its wound, as he was applying, he felt the fur of the dog. This fur was very soft. It was very nice to touch. So he started caressing the dog. The dog felt very good, it felt grateful and everything. Eventually, it came out of its injury. Every day he would feed the dog and caress the dog. He went and recited the Veda and performed his yajna, but did not get the phala. Why? Is helping a jiva so wrong? Is a dog so inferior? What is the real problem? The problem is not about the dog. The problem is about you being addicted to caressing the dog, you being unable to follow the restrictions that are necessary, the discipline that is necessary to make sure that the yajna becomes a success. Forget a dog. If he had forgotten the yajna and gone and touched some other animal, a cat, let us say, continuously he kept touching and caressing a cat and everything. One fine day, the cat goes to the river, it eats fish, then it drops fish inside the yajna kunda. What will happen? You should know. Tie the cat. Don't let it near. Why should you tie the cat? That is another thing. There is a famous joke that we say, once a person was performing a homa. A cat came and disturbed it. Initially, his indriyas were strong. He was able to resist what the cat was doing. But eventually, it started torturing. It would move about. It would hit the ghee. It would hit the sruk, suva, everything. All the dravyas would be hit. The darbha would be scattered. It would do anything and everything. So he decided to tie the cat to a pillar and then continue. One generation later, when it was his son's turn, there was no cat, but the son had seen his father. When my father performed this specific ritual, he had the cat tied to a pillar. Therefore, he said, bring the cat. If you want this ritual to be done, bring the cat and bring some cat and tie it to the pillar. Then I will. This is the extent to which we understand, in spite of seeing something completely. Look at the Indriyas. His eyes worked perfectly. His ears worked perfectly. Nose, tongue, skin, everything worked perfectly. Yet he did not process the information correctly. He assumed that the cat itself is necessary there. So we should be careful. So this person who was saintly, he remained saintly to the dog. He helped the dog a lot, but he forgot his duty in the process. Why? Because of the perception of touch. When you touch certain things, it feels so nice. And that makes it addictive. You want to touch more and more. You want to taste more and more. Oh, this tastes like heaven. I want to taste it more. What a nice smell. Some people are addicted to the smell that you get at petrol pumps also. If they stand there for an entire hour, what will happen? Nothing productive will happen for them. So we should never get addicted to anything. The only thing we should get addicted to is Bhagavan. And that too in a sattvic way. A sattvic kind of addiction. Could addiction also be sattvic? Or if it is addiction in Bhagavan, it should always be sattvic, right? How do we understand this? Addiction in Bhagavan need not always be sattvic. I am addicted to him, but I have not understood his qualities properly. Remember, we talked about certain qualities. We talked about Artha Panchakam. We need to know about Bhagavan. If we do not understand about him properly, we might end up liking certain attributes in an inappropriate way. And there is a difference between looking at Rama with bhakti and looking at Rama with pride. If I am proud of Rama, that would still be good. But if I am proud of myself, oh, do you know who I am? I come from the Kula of Rama. Do you know I'm this great, that great? There also I'm thinking about Rama. There also I'm thinking about the greatness of Rama. But that is no longer sattvic. So we should always use in a sattvic way. We should use the indriyas in a sattvic way. We should understand the futility of the body. It is very difficult to understand the futility of a body. Yet it is said in the scriptures that the pure Vaishnava is one who even has association with his wife only for the sake of getting a child, who would in turn practice dharma and eventually get moksha, live in the perfect way as ordained by scripture. Santanartham cha maitunam, it is said in the scripture. Is it possible to be that way? When I perceive something, I automatically start liking it. How do I come out of it? When I perceive something, I automatically start hating. How do I come out of it? Krishna has said, right? Vidya Vinaya Sampanne, what did he say? We have cited the shloka so many times now in this class. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne, Brahmanega Vihastini, Shuni Chaiva Shvapakecha, Pandita Samadarshina. You should have that Samadarshitva. You should be able to see equally a Vidyavinaya Sampanna Brahmana, one who has mastered so much knowledge and has therefore become humble. And then a Kevala Brahmana, a cow and a large mighty elephant, a dog and a person who literally kills and cooks and eats that dog. Can you see all of these equally? How do you see all of these equally? They are actually obviously different. But Panditaha, Samadarshinaha, they understand that in all of them there is Jivatma. The bodies are Achit, the Jivatma is Chit, yet both of them are Sharira of Bhagavan. Both of them will count under Sharira. That has to be understood by us. It is not easy, but it is possible to train. As Krishna says, Abhyasena tu kaunteya, Vairagyena cha gruhyate. With Abhyasa and Vairagya, we can control our indriyas. That is what Arjuna says, right? I am unable to control my mind. Krishna says, yes, there is no doubt, O Arjuna. Asamshayam mahabaho manodurnigraham chalam. Abhyasena tu kaunteya, Vairagyena cha gruhyate. So, it is the mind which is making you addicted. The indriyas have nothing to do with making you addicted. The indriyas have nothing to do with taking you away. When we talk about indriya nigraha, we imply that whatever is knowledge, whatever perception is brought by the indriya is appropriately processed by the manas. My ears will hear even if I don't want to, but I decide whether to process it or not, right? Like the person who was watching a movie, when he heard that he suffered a huge loss in business. After that, the movie's audio was on, he was in a theater, but he could no longer hear that way. Why? Because his mind decided not to listen to it. So our mind can shut off even the ear, which does not have a closure, right? The eyes have eyelids. The ears do not have earlids. Yet we can close our ears. What will we close our ears to? those things that are not sattvic, we should close our ears, we should close our eyes, we should not try to consume at the first place. That should be the path towards improvement. So with that, I would like to conclude today's class. If anybody has any question, please feel free to ask. Okay, there is no question. So I will conclude today's class. Thank you so much for attending.